Hey, this is Mr. Herzon, teaching honors biology here at glorious Thomas Wooten High School. Actually, I'm remote teaching in my home in the Lakelands, the Kentlands. Um, Basically, I'm a stone throw from all the restaurants, things like Starbucks. Okay, so I'm coming to you from Wooten's satellite campus. All right. Um, there's a couple of things I want to show. I updated the front page to include this GIF to ask a question. Are ecosystems dynamic? You can click on this some more. It's a really good article about ecosystems that are constantly changing. Okay. I also moved stuff around um, for the links to the classes. Now that you have some sort of sense of the bell schedule, the Zoom directions, all right, my contact information and syllabus, I've moved those down. So I put all the coursework, all right, up towards the top. Okay. I put some new things and resources. These are some really good uh, videos that I found on YouTube. And if you find any that you would like to suggest that you think other students would like, just click here and you can send me the link, um, as well. So the three that I really have added, one from Khan Academy and Crash Course in Biology, with the brothers Hank and Bob. All right. And then Mr. Anderson of Bozeman Science. So I'll be putting more of them that's up here, in addition to some articles for reading. That's really helpful. Okay. All right. Now, one big change is after I finish publishing this screencast, this is where you go to find all the screencasts that I have done. Now, the screencasts are primarily going to be lecture notes, activity instructions, and investigations. So I needed to put something that is a backup. Okay. If your connection is not stable, or you are the lucky winner of getting boomed from Zoom, all right? Or maybe the audio goes out, or you remember you were in class, but you want to go over the directions again. You can do that here, okay? The best thing is that um, I have full control over it, meaning in 72 hours, it's not going to be erased. Okay. So I like this much better. It's something that I have full control over. Okay. So this is a great place to go. All right. Let's take a look uh, and get on with the lecture from the early release day. That was a day that a lot of unstable connection problems, and students had a hard time of hearing me as well. Okay, so actually, I didn't want to do that. Let's go back. Hopefully, my face will still be there. Good, good. Now, can I move that? All right. Um, Let me just control this a little bit, and hopefully this will not get deleted. If I go to present, my face disappears. All right, I can live with this. Okay. Ecology, the study of living things, their environment, and how they interact with one another. When we try to pick out anything by itself in the um, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. And this is really profound. Number one, it's a really good uh, statement made by John Muir in the 19th century. What's really amazing is that, you know, he had telescopes, there were microscopes available, but did he know about bacteria and other microscopic organisms? Remember, the microscope wasn't invented yet. Well, wasn't readily used until the late 1800s. So I don't know when he wrote this statement, but the fact that it was over a couple hundred years ago, um, it's really great insight on his part. So let's take a look at that. These are the giant redwoods in Muir Park that are named after John Muir. He was an ecologist as well, so he really knew what he was doing. And if you look at one of these trees, think about all the living things that are crawling on it, uh, burrowing inside of it. But also, what about underneath the soil, like the bacteria and other types of organisms that are down there as well? Um, think about the soil. You know, there's roots for these trees underneath, and their job is to absorb water as well as other nutrients like nitrates. Every living thing needs a source of nitrogen in order to make amino acids and to make things called proteins. You also need nitrogen to make nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. Okay, so there's all that. And so there's nitrogen that's in the soil, there's carbon that's in the soil as well as an enormous amount of other nutrients. But how about up in the canopy? That's where a fantastic organ is called the leaf, or leaves in this picture. All right, so thinking about the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, but also know that the tree needs both of these, okay? And it's going to release CO2 to the atmosphere because, believe it or not, plants need to make sugar. And how they make sugar is taking in the CO2 and together with water and chlorophyll and the sunlight, they can make sugars, primarily glucose. And one byproduct is oxygen. But at the same time, they're going to need oxygen to break down that sugar to release energy for more growth, for more repair. Okay? Now, look at the other abiotic factors that are around. One thing for sure is wind. Okay? But how about light? There's light intensity and there's light duration. All right. We can think of so many other types of things, but now, what about the universe? How is the universe interacting? Well, you don't have to go that far. Go to the moon. The moon controls the tides and large bodies of water. For example, like the San Francisco Bay, which is right near the redwoods. This is how the aquifers are supplied, that the tree gets its water from. Okay. And then go all the way out to the sun and the solar flares, how that can interact with our environment. So, really, it's really profound. From one organism, it's connected to the entire universe. This is the famous Chandler tree. My wife and I had an opportunity to drive right through it. Just fantastic if you ever get the chance. There was a report a few years ago that the tree was damaged, and I don't know if they've reopened it since then, but it's just a sight to behold. Look how enormous, right? Habitat. This is where an organism lives and includes the biotic and the abiotic factors. When we see the prefix or read the prefix bio, bio means life. If we put the letter A in front of that, the A means without, okay, or not, or non, okay. So some abiotic factors that I mentioned, all right, light, temperature, okay, water. Important to pay attention to what's written here in blue, okay, because it really depends upon the location on our planet, say the equator versus, the polar ice caps, um, and how these abiotic factors, the amounts of these change, okay, all right, water and soil and minerals. Biotic factors um, is organized in levels of organization, and this gives it a sense of scale. So there's all these terms. There are some Quizlets online. I really suggest you do that because you do need to know the definition of all of these terms, especially, and it's fully supported in the Bio Preview, which you had a quiz on already. So there will be some other assessments in which you're going to be assessed on your knowledge of, and you just as well start making flashcards or the digital version of that are Quizlets, and there's a lot of them out there. Okay. One good thing is this picture. All right. That puts it all in order. So when you're thinking about the biosphere, that's very general and includes all those other terms. Okay. So when we get down to something like a population, all the living organisms of a specific genus and species, okay, they have their part in the community, which includes all the other life forms, okay, down to the down to the specific individual. These are some examples of um, biomes, and this was well supported in the activity of your homestead discussion question, in which you had to go out and identify your backyard or the park or a nearby farm, which biome is it located in, right? Types of nutrition: autotrophs. They can make their own food from inorganic substances. And these inorganic substances are mainly carbon dioxide and water in organisms that can make their own food. Okay, so producers, all right, are there's two mainly different types of producers. Photosynthetic organisms are one. All right. But I want to go back to this word autotrophs for you to know. So, really, if you look at the ideology of the term, it will help you out understanding it. Auto is the prefix auto relates to self, okay? Meaning that it can be made by oneself. All right. Troph is Greek derivation for trophisms, all right, referring to nutrition. So, how does an organism make its own food? Okay, one of these ways is by the use of sunlight. Okay, in the presence of chloroplasts, they can convert carbon dioxide and water into a carbohydrate. And this is the chemical formula for glucose and galactose. um, and a byproduct is oxygen. Uh, so the chemical energy that is formed is really in the bonds within the glucose molecule Um, if I, what would be really helpful is if I bring up, let me search here, images of carbon skeletons. Ah, okay. Um, Here we go. I would really like, a nice big picture of something. Um, there we go. Okay. So you see right here, glucose and fructose have both the same chemical formula. So where that energy is stored in those carbon-carbon bonds right there. So that line between these two carbon atoms, there's energy, okay? Potential energy. And to release that energy is through a process called cellular respiration, in which enzymes are used to break these bonds, okay? And that's what releases the energy, okay? That should be very helpful for you, um, for your knowledge. Okay, so there's my picture. Okay, can I get me back? Now, is there a way of how I can shrink this and still see me? Yes, there is. This is great. This is awesome. All right, I'm learning, I'm learning, I'm learning. Yes, I'm learning. Okay, so onward. We'll keep this. Oh, there we go. Can I? Maybe I'm going to disappear again. Oh, that's as small as I can make it. I make this smaller. Oh, look at that. I disappear. Okay. Can you live without me? You have so. You have so far. Okay. So here we go to the next slide. All right. Autotrophs make their own food from inorganic substances. The second type is called chemosynthesis. So organisms that they instead of using sunlight, they're using inorganic compounds for to convert their energy in a process called chemosynthesis. Okay, um, there's a good video. Is it here or here? Ah, here's the link down here. Really good video about all of these life forms that you're just going to be blown away. And the only place in the world that these organisms can survive is with um, uh, close by these thermal vents. Now, take a wild guess what the temperature is in Fahrenheit. 700 degrees. Wow. Hot. Okay. They're not actually living inside of the vent. But what's spewing from the vent is all sorts of nutrients, sulfides, okay, for example, um, other types of toxic substances, and when it comes out, it's going to diffuse, um, you know, within the ocean water and get all mixed up. But yet, there's so much life that exists. So, take a look at this video down here. Okay, heterotrophs. The word hetero means getting their nutrition from another living organism. So organisms need to consume other organisms for their sugar. Okay, and just like us, that we eat salad. okay, or when um, a goat feeds on hay, okay, all right. Cellular, it also could be include meat eaters, all right. So include cellular respiration. The consumers must release the energy stored in those carbon-carbon bonds within sugars and other macromolecules like proteins, right, and lipids as well. So energy is released in a form called ATP. We'll get to that a little bit more. ATP actually stands for adenosine triphosphate. Okay. There are many different types of heterotrophs. Ones that strictly eat plant material are called herbivores. Okay. So herbivore um, is was included in that homestead observer activity. It just had a different name to it. Herbivores are also known as primary consumers. Carnivores, they eat meat to get compounds for respiration. There are a variety of type of carnivores: a predator that kills and eats its prey, or scavenger. They feed on the flesh of dead animals. Omnivores eat both plants and animals. Okay. So one thing that's kind of interesting is looking at dentition at the teeth. Okay. And what sort of teeth are present. So you can see right here on this mandrill, the incisors, okay, and the canines here, ideal for tearing and cutting and dicing up. And then further back, it will have the molars for grinding, okay. So try to look at an elephant, the teeth of an elephant. You're going to find um, no type of teeth actually for tearing or ripping out big chunks of meat. Um, it has a lot of premolars and a lot of molars. Okay. Saprophytes or saprobes, these break down dead organisms from organic matter and convert it to inorganic matter. So remember um, um, glucose, C6H12O6. Um, if there is like a dead plant, all right, or a dead animal, all right, um, bacteria as well as fungi, they're going to break down those organic compounds and release things like carbon dioxide and water and nitrates and um, other sorts of inorganic compounds. Models of feeding relationships. This is food chains and food webs. Food chain is a series of organisms that pass through which food energy is passed through, not the food. Okay? It could be very easily for you to go off track and saying, oh, okay, small fish, all right, is the food for the squid. Well, that's true, but that's not what the arrow refers to. It refers to the energy that is in the fish gets transferred to the squid. Okay. So when we look at this, our producer is the algae. Our primary consumer are the zooplankton, our secondary and our tertiary, and this is our quaternary or our top carnivore. Okay. So carnivore, 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 herbivore. Okay. All right. both matter and energy move up the food chain. Okay, so yes, um, energy increases, but also the matter from the algae and the zooplankton go up to the fish, up to the squid, and up to the shark. Okay, but no, the arrows is not talking about that matter. Okay, that's moving up. It focuses on the energy that is moving up. Very important. So remember about producers and um, consumers. Energy pyramids show the flow of energy from the producer to each subsequent trophic. There's that word trophic, relating to nutrition or feeding level. It's important to realize only 10% of the energy at each trophic level can be passed on to the next level because it's not an efficient system. If it was an efficient system, meaning 100%, we would overheat. Okay, living things would actually overheat, not burn into flames, but um, they wouldn't be able to handle all of that energy. So it's not efficient. Okay, actually, 90% of the energy is utilized by the organism to do work like digestion. Okay, or to reproduce or divide cells to make more cells, or it's lost as thermal heat, okay, back into the atmosphere. Think about, having a really big meal and how warm your forehead gets, okay? Maybe even sweating, perspiring a little bit, okay? Notice how when your body increases the temperature, we get a little tired, and that's because the enzymes don't perform well, and could be denaturing. And we need to rest, okay, to slowly digest and to make new enzymes to break down those macromolecules into smaller ones. Biomass pyramids, the greatest biomass must be at the bottom of the pyramid because only 10% of the energy in the tissues of organisms is available at the next level. Now, one thing, when students see these pyramids, all right, to them, they all look the same. In fact, they're not the same. Okay. If we look at a large body of water, say like an ocean, or a lake, or even a stream, this pyramid actually would be upside down. Okay. The producers would still be in the base, but um, the pyramid is upside down or reversed underwater. And then you could be looking at both above and below, and there's certain types of climates like the polar ice caps in which there's not going to be a lot of producers um, on the top level, all right, above, or living within the ice. Okay, there could be some, all right, but not like what's in the water. Okay, and so it is somewhat different when you take environmental science, AP, APES. That's a possibility if you like this type of um, of subject material, but and you can also follow through in college as well. So the biomass is the total mass of the living material within the pyramid. And notice, this is really good, and you can look at either one of these and notice from the producers, okay, um, there's 100% of biomass, okay, 50,000 or 100%, okay, but notice only 10% of that goes to the next level. So from 5,000 down to 500, and then going up to 50, and then going up to 5, and then zero point 0.5, and so on. So here you see the ascension. As you go up, there is less amount of energy available. And this kind of makes sense because, humans, we just don't eat one chicken in our lifetime. Okay? We get hungry. I mean, we can get a lot more, eat a lot of corn and eat some chicken, which I did tonight. Okay? Feeding relationships continued. Food webs. Many food chains are linked together um, in these webs that show feeding relationships within the ecosystem. So, if we look back at this pyramid, okay, in which we have producers and all the ascending levels of the primary consumers, let's take a look at. We'll use this marsh hawk as a top carnivore, and let's see how far down we can get. Okay, we can definitely look. Okay, at this a bird called the clapper rail. Okay, and seeing what it feeds upon. Um, it feeds on a sandhopper as well as this would be an omnivore. Okay, um, it's definitely um, a eats uh, a, plant material, so it's an omnivore. That's really really good. Okay, um, and then the producers. You can see that there are two different types. Um, the sandhopper eats on detritus, like dead organisms. All right, that would be an example of a saprobe. All right, um, and then it also eats on the producers as well. So this is a pretty involved food web in which you can see the food chain. That there is quite a selection, but notice I think you know I went through a series of food chains. If we look at a simple food chain going from the hawk to the this bird and down to the producer. So here's three different trophic levels. This would be the producer, the bird would be the primary consumer, and then the secondary consumer would be this hawk. Which is more true to life, a food chain or a food web? It would be a food web. Okay. One thing to consider, and this is really good about disturbances in an ecosystem, what might happen um, to this fish. So if we're looking at, the plankton eating fishes, all right, so they feed upon the algae and the zooplankton, all right. What would happen to these organisms if the mussels uh, population declined? So there's going to be less mussels. The mussels are food for the heron. So now what does the heron eat? You got it. Okay. Feeds upon the fishes. So this is a quick menu change. Oh, we're out of mussels today, but we got hordes of fish. Okay. What's going to happen to the population um, of the producers? They're going to increase. So one by one, see how these food webs are all interconnected and how they um, are connected to one another within a universe, within an ecosystem. Okay, just like what John Muir said. Okay, bioaccumulation or biomagnification as we move up the food chain at each level. um, the biomass decreases. Okay, so that's why the pyramid gets smaller and smaller as we ascend. Um, okay, but also, if there is a toxic substance that's released into the environment, okay, it could be anywhere from DDT to like mercury, how it can start getting concentrated within the producers, and the zooplankton would feed on the producers and now start getting some of that toxic substance into their tissues and into the small fish, into the large fish. Okay, so looking at um, like this eagle or this osprey, if you will, that feeds on the fish. It doesn't eat on one fish in its lifetime. It's going to feed on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fish, right? Okay, so you can see how the toxin is actually going to increase as you go up. Okay, so next time we'll talk about symbiotic relationships. But I wanted to stop here and thank you for listening, and have a great day. Bye bye.